Hello and welcome to ReginaldESQ. I'm Underhook and this is the next in my series looking at the Armour changes in patch 9.9 in World of Tanks. So on the right hand side, we're looking at the Churchill 7 today, and on the right hand side of your screen you'll see a recording of 9.8 Tank Inspector, and on the left hand side of your screen is the current live version 9.9. So let's hit play and we'll start that going, and I'll just go to colorized view on here as well. Let's get the angle pretty much the same, and I'll just stop that there. We're looking at the lower plate there, and the armor on the lower plate was 139mm and is now 140mm, so it's a whopping 1mm buff, completely changing the tank now. Okay, it's 1mm thicker, but you can see down here, the very lower part of the lower glacis there is 102mm, so that has been nerfed, but it's also had its angle increased in that little section, so really it's not really a nerf, it doesn't make any difference. In fact, because of the angle, it's actually stronger. But on this upper part here, where it actually curves around and starts going into the upper plate, as you can see there, they've actually nerfed that little piece of armor, so that now is coming up as 95, where it was previously the 139 as it bent around. So that is easier to pen than it once was. Let's move along now, and I'll continue the recording going again, and then we can see the upper plate weakness here, which was 57mm and is still 57mm. The sloping appears to be about the same, but that is a weak area of this tank. So let's continue the recording until we get to the upper plate here, and the upper plate was 152mm and is still 152mm, so it's the same. However, the strengths and weaknesses in this area have been changed. So if we have a quick look when this cursor moves along here, that hatch, there used to be a hatch just there, has been removed, and that hatch was only 139mm and was a weak spot on the frontal plate, or the plate in front of the driver here. It's not a weakness anymore. It's a consistent 152mm right across the front now, so you don't have that 139mm weakness, so you don't have to worry too much about which way you angle the tank anymore. So I'll continue the recording along until we get the other bit. Unfortunately, the area surrounding the machine gun was 202mm. It's now a consistent 152, so that's a little bit of a strength that has actually been removed. Machine gun port itself, though, was a weakness at 139, it's now 152, so that's strengthening yet again. So, bit of a mixed bag, the front of it. At least it's consistent, so you'll know, what you can and can't do, which is kind of good in a way. I'm just waiting now. So we're moving here to the front area of the turret, and that is the same as it was, 152mm, and it's consistent across the front. There is now, you'll notice, no real sort of a mantlet area anymore, so it is consistent. You had a little bit of sort of overlaid armor there, so that is a bit of a nerf where the purple area was before. It's not as good as it was. The red sections here are the same though at 203mm, so that's still the same sort of area. But now looking at the turret ring, I'll just go back there a little bit because I started looking at the turret ring. I think I'm on it there, yeah. It was 139mm. That's now been strengthened. The turret ring is now 152, the same as the turret and the upper plate, so quite consistent now. So you'll know that, if you're blocking one area, you're probably going to be able to block in the other area as well. So that is good to know. It is very, very consistent, which I kind of like that approach. So yeah, the turret ring has been strengthened. So now moving along, and here is, I guess, my problem with what they've done to the tank, and this is a major nerf. You can see here the sloped area here, this sloped area on the turret, which can be shot from the front by a tank at the same height. So I'll just get this the same height here so you can see, yep, you can clearly shoot that area. It was 25mm. It is now only 20mm, which means that if you have a 60 caliber gun, you can now overmatch on the roof, which is a guaranteed or almost guaranteed penetration. Whereas before you needed, it was 25mm, so you needed a 75 caliber gun to get the same auto pen. And a lot of tanks out there have a 60 caliber gun, so even scout tanks, provided they're not too low, can get a shot in there and pen you. They've kind of balanced it a little bit because the cupola is now almost non-existent, and it is about 70mm, but you can see that it's very hard to even see compared to the old cupola. Was much larger, even though it wasn't big before. You can see there the old cupola was quite a bit bigger. It was 95 millimeters, now it's 70, but now it's virtually impossible to hit. So yes, the turret is in a way a little bit lower because you don't have that anymore, but then it's not exactly a hull down tank anyway, and that is a substantial weakness on the front of the tank, so that is a bit of a concern. Moving along now, as we turn the tank, we can see that we have a mixture here of a little bit of a buff and a nerf. I'll just play this a little bit. So this area here, I used to sometimes like to shoot on people who were either just poking around a corner or something, and angling the front, becoming very strong. This area you could still pen sometimes, and it used to count as a hit into the actual hull of the tank, so it wouldn't just track them, would do hit points of damage. Now previously 38 millimeters over the 57, which was the hull, it is now 38 millimeters over 64, so instead of 57 it's now 64 behind there, which is stronger. However, there used to be this part here, which we can see was track armor over the top of that. The track armor is no longer over there with the HD molding. The track armor is much thinner, and you can just go through the section now and get a straight on pen into 64 mils of armor. So that's a very easy pen on an angled tank, which is a severe weakness, and you can see that also popping up here. If you shoot between the tracks here, you've got a very easy pen of 64 millimeters as well on this side, which is definitely an issue on the new modeling. So some weaknesses, if you know what you're looking at, and just to actually, we might just flick back so you can see what that looks like there. On this, without the colorized view over here, this is actually very hard to see. So you'll just have to know that the superstructure ends about here, and just beside the superstructure is basically an area that has no track protection, and you can pump shots into it. So you just have to sort of know that, but it is definitely a weakness on the Churchill 7 now. I'm going into a bit of detail on this tank, so I drove this tank a lot. When I started World of Tanks, I started on the British Heavy line, which was turned out to be a bad choice, but anyway. So I suffered through some of these tanks. Alright, so there we can see that 97 millimeters, it's still 95 millimeters, it's still the same, so no change there. However, they have eliminated the weaknesses on the side of the tank, and you can see there that weakness, which was 83 millimeters, is no longer there. It's still consistent 95. This area here, if you're looking at it thinking that's a weakness, no, it's not. It's a piece of track, and it now actually increases the armor value to 115, so that's a strength. The other weakness on the side there was, I think it's actually an intake port, which, as you can see there, that blue area was only 25 millimeters, and it was a great area for scout tanks to shoot into the side of the tank. That's gone and is no longer a weakness. It's still 95 millimeters consistently now. Yeah, so no longer a weakness in that area. Just showing this area here is 25 millimeters over the back there. Alright, so I'll go and have a look at the back of the tank. The back of the tank now here is pretty much the same at 31 millimeters and 51 millimeters. However, when the recording catches up, you'll see that there's a blue plate over the back here. That used to act as spaced armor and was also 51 millimeters thick. That is gone. So in theory, it should be easier to penetrate. It was patchy. It didn't overlay in all places, but it was 51 over 51. That is gone. And you can see the weaknesses have been removed from both sides of the tank. I'll just get this to stop in a second. So the upper deck now of the tank was 19 and is still 19 millimeters. That sloped area, which we commented on before, which was 25, is now 20 and is consistent over the entire roof of the tank and the roof of the cupola, whereas before the cupola and everything was only 19 millimeters, but the front was 25. So a considerable nerf. So a mixture of buffs and nerfs for the Churchill 7. I hope you liked this armor review. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe to ReginaldESQ. Have fun.